All right, we're going to jump right into it. I'll start with kind of a brief overview. We're going to cover what we deem to be probably the most useful flow of this integration. But like Mel said, it is bi-directional. We can sync invoices either direction. We're going to focus on MSBC to Stripe. So this workflow is intended to be, you've got your customer base and all of your invoicing, sales orders, fulfillment being done out of Business Central. You want those invoices to be sent to the customer, give them a link to click, pay it, and they click the link, they can pay their invoice, and that immediately comes into Business Central without any reconciliation needs on your team. So we'll start our demo. I'm going to come in and create a brand new item in our sandbox here. And we're going to sell the Lord of the Rings trilogy series book set. All right, that's going to be an inventory item. I don't want any stock warnings for the sake of our demo. We'll give this a cost and a unit price here. We'll give this a tax code. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. So this is just, we're getting set up here, creating our item. We'll refresh the page here. And I'll switch over to our Stripe product catalog. And just like that, we've got our Lord of the Rings book set coming right in here. And that'll stay in sync, so any changes made to that item will sync right back through. Come over here to our customers and get a new customer going. And that way we can walk through this invoicing flow. So we'll do... get an address in here. This is going to be really important because just hot off the press, we've got a new integration as an alternative to some traditional sales tax calculation features. We can also use Stripe tax to calculate the tax on invoices right out of MSBC. So I'll show that off here in just a second. And before we move on, I think I can do that over here. We're going to go ahead and tie this to the Stripe tax calculation just to, you don't have to select an area code typically. For this, Stripe will handle everything just kind of based off of the customer's address. So we've got our customer in here. We've got an address that we can calculate tax off of. And we'll start that invoicing process. So again, this will work with any sort of order invoicing flow. As long as we can get an invoice in MSBC, then this integration will pick it up. So we'll get that customer pulled in on this invoice. Make sure our dates are valid. And we'll go ahead and get a couple of products on here. And looks like this one's missing a tax code. So this is a standard Stripe tax code. You can select any of their hundreds of various tax codes, but that helps make sure that the correct tax gets calculated. An important note is the tax integration I'm about to show. So everything we've done is just kind of general setup, but this tax integration can be completely separate from the other Stripe integration. So if you prefer to use a different, payment gateway or anything like that, or just, prefer your existing method of collecting checks and whatnot, you could still utilize the Stripe tax, and vice versa. You don't need to use the tax engine with the invoicing. So there we go. So you can see we've got our Stripe tax details in here. We've got our total tax on the line. It's automatically adjusted the invoicing price, and I'll go ahead and post that. All right, while we wait for that to sync over to Stripe, what we're gonna expect here in a couple of minutes is a link to come back into Business Central that then you can merge onto emails sent to your customers or put it on your invoice PDF presentation. They can click that link. It'll take them directly to Stripe to be able to pay that invoice, and then that payment will sync right back into Business Central and relieve the invoice. There's two features I'm not going to be able to cover today. Credit memos will also reduce the amount of that invoice in Stripe so that you don't end up with customers overpaying, and you can also void and cancel invoices that way. And then payouts. So Stripe will actually take the fee out before they pay you the full amount of the payments that have come into Stripe. And so that payout reconciliation, it's done asynchronously. It's not something I can trigger on here, but it will post a journal entry into Business Central and handle that full reconciliation and give you kind of a record of it. All right, so I'm going to refresh this screen. And looks like I've got my link here. This is our test URL. And so that link, again, you could put anywhere and send it directly to your customer. And this will support any payment method that Stripe accepts. So card, bank accounts. I think the bank account flow is really cool because you can do a full OAuth institution. But I don't want to wait for that payment to come in. So I'm going to go ahead and get this on a credit card. And we'll pay that invoice in full. And we'll give that just a minute to come back here into Business Central. So I'm going to go over to posted sales invoices. You can see we've got that remaining amount. This will take just a couple of seconds. And while we wait for that, I will remind you that that Stripe tax flow is fully separatable from the invoicing flow. So you can see that payment did come into Stripe. This is the back end of Stripe. So I'm going to try to pull up the invoice and just show you that sales tax and the full amount there. Switch back over here, give this a refresh. And all went well. So that invoice has been fully relieved in MSBC. And the last step would be that payout reconciliation, which I'm not able to show live. But that about wraps up the demo. I will remind you that this can go both ways in Stripe invoices. So if you've already using Stripe and creating invoices that way, and you just need to get them into Business Central for reconciliation purposes, that is a functionality that we have as well.